back into it with the LAS-7 Dagger. So last time we finished up our cooling cell for the most part, but now we need it to attach somehow, so I'm thinking magnets will be the way to go. Usually I'd put them down here on this face so it can snap in, but I think we're going to try something a little different this time. Because the way it snaps on there, it tends to eventually break up the super glue holding it in place since that is very brittle. And with all the impacts, it tends to just smack it over and over until the super glue gives out and it breaks off, and then you don't really have a magnet anymore. It comes off. So I think we're going to do something a little different this time, and we still got to clear a pathway for that as well. So let's try the magnets now. I'm thinking we'll put them up here on top of this piece because they do have that nice flat surface against each other. So let's go back into our usual view here and and probably right here will be where we end up putting it. So maybe two of my 3x9 magnets, we'll put them right across here, and that way it can slide in there no problem. Mm, I think that should do. Alright, so to get those on there, let's F3 and bring our cursor over, and then we'll Shift A and generate some circles. And since this is 9 millimeters wide, actually 9.5 millimeters wide, but this is radius, so we'll divide by 2. And then we'll try to angle it as close as we can to these lines. It's probably not going to be perfect, but as close as we can manage. Say, let's get median point back up here. And I'm going to Control Z on that rotation just in case that active element was a little off and might have disrupted our angle. So the median point, we're going to try to get it right on this line here. And then we'll hit F and then E to extrude. It should go straight back just like this. Now I'm going to create an edge just for this. So back over here, we're going to go like this, and then plus edge, and we'll call this magnet edge. So we know it's for this setup here. And then with that selected, put a face there, GY, then we'll take it down to 3.2, let's say. Maybe, yeah, maybe 3.2. And the magnet should be 9.5 across, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is a pretty small cell. One magnet will probably do it. But just for security's sake, let's put another one on there. So I'm going to GX and drag, let's turn off snap for a second. GX, I'm going to drag it over here. And we got some jets flying overhead. X. And then let's shift D and then GX, another one over here. Now let's get a measurement for over here. I'm going to extrude GX, turn snap back on. And that is 1.4 millimeters from the edge. We like symmetry here, so let's work on that. All that, and then this one, and then we can GX and put at 1.4. Snap is giving me a little trouble, but 1.4 there. Should keep them equidistant apart. And then we can get rid of those little measures. And then we can attach this to this face. So let's turn off X-ray mode. Get this face, X, get rid of it. Then we will put some edges in between here and here. And also let's get edges over here and here. I'll get those edge loops. And let's get rid of these. Whoop. Get rid of these. These as well. So we should just have that, and we hit F to create a face on that, and then we'll hit Alt, left click on these, gather them up, and then F to put another face on that. So that's for the main laser. Now we gotta set these onto the other side as well. So I'm gonna take these, Shift D, and then I'm gonna hit P to separate selection. Then we're gonna hide the main so we can focus on this. And, you know, I was gonna knife project. I mean, we could do it either way. I'll go ahead and knife project. We got the setup for it. And let's go ahead and Shift 7 on that, and then we can mesh, knife project. No need to cut through. And we'll have those. Turn that off, Control 1. And then we can hide these magnet cutters. Hide that. Did we name this cooling cell? Yeah, we did. Alright, and with the magnet edge still selected, I'm going to hit E to extrude, and right click, just in case, GY, let's turn off snap, GY, and we'll set this at 3.2, just like the other one. Way, hopefully the magnets will peek out a little bit. If they don't, you could add, like, I like to use a hole puncher and some paper or some kind of material to put down here so the magnets extend a bit. If they're not coming out, they should be relatively flush, but I'd also like them to peek out just a little bit to make sure the magnets have a good connection with each other. And I think that's about it for that. And now we need to do the thing with this one. Hmm. This might be a little tricksy. Let's see. Let's collect all these. See if this will make things a little faster. I'm going to get rid of the edge links. Then we're going to cancel our selection of all those. Because we just want this area here. And do we want this back facing? I don't think we want those. So Alt, Shift, left click to get rid of that selection. And then, since the magnets had that facing, I think we can still use this edge to SY0 to flatten that out. That went pretty well, except for that part there and the top. but that's no big deal. Actually, we might want to just deselect those entirely. I don't think we need to affect that at all. Maybe deselect that one as well. Then SY0 again. That way we got this nice flat face. Don't need that. SY0. There. Okay. I think that covers it. And pretty sure we got rid of a lot of these vertices for the other side, so I think we're gonna do that again. Keep those at the very ends, these corners, so we have that reference. Hmm. Get rid of all of these. Just creates a needless amount of complexity there. And we'll keep this very end bit. We'll get rid of all this. Because this way we can just make it a flat face without having to worry too much, because we are going to put something on here. Delete. We still got those. Delete. Okay. These must be overlapping those, so we'll get them. We'll get them. Alright. So that should clean that up. And now we can put a face between these two edges. Nice clean face. And then we can put a face over here as well. So that's nice. Much nicer. Much, much nicer. Alright. And with that in play, there was something like a sticker or something. Yeah, so there's a sticker, I guess, just a white bit there. Clearly can't see any details at all, and I don't think any other image is going to give us any better detail. But, just so we can make something there, I'm thinking maybe just put a little recess on there, just with respect to that little design. So let's subdivide, oh, not bevel. Subdivide, no, did it again. Subdivide, there we go. Shift Z. And then we're going to, yeah, subdivide this again. Let's get that up there. And then we'll extrude off to the left and right. Let's make this symmetrical as we can. Okay, GX. And let's say it's maybe 4.3. Let's extrude again over here. 4.3. Alright, and then we'll get rid of this edge. Recreate those faces in a sec. Grab these. And then we'll, with magnet edge still on there, I think this will work just fine. So extrude, then right click, then GY to pull it back a little bit. Let's say 1 millimeter. So we got that little recess in there. And let's restore these faces. There, so we have our little recess. Be a little too deep. That's mostly just so I can paint it white later. And if you want to, I guess you can add a sticker if you have the capabilities to produce. There. So that should be good. Now we have to create this channel in the main to accommodate this bit here. So let's get both of these in edit mode. And then we got, I think, two sides of this. Let's subdivide. Wait, that goes down here. So before, wait, we got both of these selected, right? Yeah. So let's, it seems like it only comes down to here. So let's take those two, subdivide, and it looks like we'll subdivide this one manually. And let's line those up. Getting snapback on, GX, GX. I'm gonna hide that cooling cell for a moment. GX, make sure we're on there. Okay, I don't know if we need that. Let's go ahead and dissolve that vertice and bring back our cell. So these need to be 0.5 millimeters or maybe 0.6 millimeters away from that. So we'll snap that there, and then we'll have to give ourselves some room. So maybe 6.9 or maybe 6.8 just to give ourselves some wiggle room, or 5.8. So GX, let's turn off snap. GX 5.8. There. Okay. And then we could take these two edges and then raise them just a bit along the Y. Turning snap back on, GY. Doesn't seem like it needs to come out very much at all, but just so's we got it. Five. Looks like it's raised already, so I'm just gonna put it at 0.6. I'm not too worried about that one. Let's get rid of this, or hide it for a moment. And get rid of these edges here. And then we can create some new faces along there. There. And there. And then this face needs to be restored. And this one as well. And what's going down here? So these faces should not exist. Only that way our magnets can fit in there. And then I don't think we need, well, I think we need this going. And let's bring back our cell, because let's see where it stopped. So it stops way up there. So this is totally loose, and I guess that doesn't matter. Then in that case, hiding cell again. So let's go ahead and close up this face then. This face is still there. So just this one is left. F on that. And I think that's it. Oh, we got this big face that needs to be restored. Let's get rid of that. F. Fine. So now when we slot it in, it should hook into our magnets down there. And things should line up relatively well. We gave ourselves some wiggle room, but it should be fairly snug. I'm only a little worried of it tipping out this way, because there's not much holding it in. Up here we got these rails, we got this upper bit, but then the only thing holding it in would be this and the magnets. But we'll see. We'll see once we print it out. Alright, so that I think is everything for this whole back area, possibly. So I think we can finally start working on the barrel, which I think I'll save for next time. And we are getting back into it with the LAS-7 Dagger. So now that we've finished off basically everything else, it's time to tackle this rather iconic triangular barrel here. So in order to do that, let's get the 3D cursor back to the middle. So I'm gonna here and hit 0, 0, 0 in case you need to find it. It's over here in view. You just plug that in and 3D cursor location. That way we can start at the center. So in order to get that general shape, I think we will start with a triangle. So I'm going to hit Shift A, get a mesh plane, and let's say 300 millimeters maybe. That's too big. 200, doesn't matter all that much at this point, but I'm going to rotate it with R, and then hold Control, rotate to 90 degrees, and then pull this over here. Here, now in order to get our triangle, let's go ahead and subdivide these two. Well, I guess we only really have to subdivide this one. And then we'll make it an equilateral. Let's go ahead and go back to global for our edge selection. And then that's 200, so this will need to be 100, I think, to make it equal. GZ, or no. It was like Pythagorean's theorem or something like that. But thankfully, since we have all these measurements right in front of us, we don't actually need that. So let's say this is 200. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and get it. 200, and we'll set this also at 200, just like that. And now we have our equilateral triangle that we can then, it's not selecting the whole thing, there it goes. And we'll move this up a little bit. Let's get our reference back so we can align it and get those faces. I'm sure I have one. Ah, here we go. With this in object mode, I'm going to move it down right over our piece. Scale this up a bit to match ours a little more. Now we can worry about scaling this guy. Bring him down, bring it out, and it's about there. So that should be okay. And then I'm thinking, maybe we'll work our way backwards because we need to make a slot here, and this Hmm. Yeah, we'll just work backwards. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, since this is rounded, we'll go ahead and bevel these corners. Bevel vertices, and let's increase that to make it nice and rounded. And that looks pretty good. And then maybe we can go into object mode with tab, right click, and then set origin to geometry to put that right in the middle where we're going to start our focusing lens and this whole thing here, the bore, I guess. So I guess we can nice project. I'm going to go cursor to active with F3 and then cursor to active, and then I'm going to open up a circle. And let's right click on it. First off, let's increase the amount of vertices. Let's say twice as much. Because at this size, you might actually notice how angular it is. And then we can increase it. Let's get this outer circle. I'm going to say is 26 millimeters. Then we hit R to rotate, and then Y to rotate along the Y axis, holding control. Rotate it up here 90 degrees, just like that. Now with this selected, we'll go ahead and Shift D to duplicate, and then medium point for our pivot point, and then we'll shrink this up a little bit. About there. I think that'll do it. And then we will go back into object mode with tab GX to pull this a little bit. Whoop, I got snap on, so it's snap there. Alright, with that pulled forward just a bit, let's go ahead and get into object mode, then edit mode with this guy, and then we'll control left click on this guy, get this orientation directly on it, mesh, knife project, and now we have our bore on there, so I can hide this. So I don't think we'll need it again. And then what we'll do is extrude with E, right click GX to pull this down a bit. And then I think it goes down again for this inner circle. So that's E, right click GX again to get that kind of layered effect there. And, oh, it's actually pretty deep. So let's say it goes back a ways, maybe like this. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And I'm thinking if we really want to, we can create like a reflective lens in there by using some casting resin. A little blue dye in there, pour in the resin and let it sit, and it'll be a nice reflective kind of semi-transparent lens that I think would look cool. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's thicken this triangle a little bit. Sure we got all of that with Alt left click. And then we'll extrude with E, right click GX so we can get some better control over it. And say it's about as thick as that part. And then we'll extrude with median as our pivot point. We'll scale down just a bit to get this kind of lip here. That seems fine. And then we'll head back with E, and then right click GX. Then we'll go all the way back here. Oop. Snap is snapping, so I'm going to turn that off. GX, way back there. And then we have some expansion here, which I think is still in this rounded shape. So there's all that. Okay, no problem, no problem. And is it the same width as that? Because if it is, I think it is, because it's not poking out, so it could be smaller, but I don't think it is. I think it's pretty uniform. So instead of trying to do that, we'll just take this over here, Shift D, right click GX, and we will turn snap back on and snap this right over here. Let's go ahead and hide these other parts so the snap doesn't try to latch onto those. And G and X, make sure it's snapped onto that one. Beautiful. Now we'll take this edge also with Alt Shift left click, and then in edge mode we'll right click, bridge edge loop. Didn't work out. Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then let's try that again. Not still giving me problems. Alright, we'll use the loop tools to bridge because that tends to work better. If you need to turn on loop tools, it's already integrated into Blender, I believe. You go over to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, I believe. Let's type loop and then just check this on there. There, and that every time you go into, what was it? Right click, these should have loop tools, and then we have bridge, which tends to work a bit better than bridge edge loops in the base. I'm not sure why, but it works, and that's what we like about it. So let's go ahead and take this measurement, 6.41, just to keep things even. So I think we have two of these, so I'm going to extrude GX and then 6.41, 6.4, just fine. It's just fine. And I think we'll deselect this guy. And with deselected, I'm going to Shift D again and just move this back so we can get this back portion as well. And then I'm going to select those two edge loops and bridge. See if that's going to work for us. Yeah, it does. That's good. It does work sometimes. Shift N with everything selected with A, and then Shift N to recalculate those normals. And that's about it for that general shape. Now, we do have to consider how to attach this onto the main piece, because right now the only thing we really have is this handle going through, and we could use some super glue to stick those on, but I'd feel more confident if we had maybe some steel beams. I was going to put some PVC pipe through, but since this cooling cell goes so deep into, where's the main? Into here. I don't know if there'll be enough room, so I'm thinking a few small steel rods connecting these parts together will give it a nice secure hold. This seems low. Let's bring this up. Scale's not exactly as the picture shows. We can alter that a bit. Let's put this over here. And we'll enlarge. Check it out. This is at least a bit closer, I think. So looking at that, let's bring this out with GX. Slap it on there. Wait, where is that handle? It's about there. It's about there. Okay, in that case, let's go ahead and pull this out a bit to match this picture a little more accurately. Try to get the scale accurate. That should be about right. Well, this back portion, maybe it can be stretched back a little bit. You know what? We can just snap it onto this. With this double clicked while I was holding shift, I'm going to GX and then snap it to one of these corner pieces. So now it's nice and flush. That should look decent. Okay, so now, let's focus on this rail bit here. See what we got going. So it looks like we have it going in. So there's indentation, and then there's these little bits sticking out. And it looks like there's a rod going around. That's not going to be fun to 3D print, unfortunately, because it is so thin. And it looks like it just stops there because this goes inward. So maybe the first thing we can do, let's see the bottom too, if that has an inward bit. This one, it does not. That's flat. So the inward bits are just on these faces here, which should be easy enough to emulate. Thinking if we can just E, that does put us on the angle I think that we want to go. So E, and then let's see, maybe 6. E to extrude, and then we suck that in a bit to get that going. And that was what? 6.24, 6.24. So just to keep up with the symmetry, we'll E, and then 6.24. All right. Oop. Oh, hold on a moment. All right, and we're back. So looking at it, I actually want this to be a little on top of this edge here, so it looks like it's kind of encasing it. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and get rid of this. And that's doing stuff because these parts are flush, nothing to worry about there. And we'll just do this again. And instead of 6, let's go to maybe 3.5 millimeters. 3.53 seems fine. And we'll go hit this in face mode, and then hit 1 to get into vertice mode, right click, delete, and then we'll put another face on there, and we'll hit E, and we got snap on, so let's turn that off, and hit E again, and then 3 point, I forgot what it was, 3.53. So let's just do that again. Rather than making an edge, hit E, 3.53. And it doesn't want to let me get exactly there. That's close enough. That's close enough. Alright. So we got those intentions. Now we can focus on these bits. Just looks like some rectangles sticking up kind of awkwardly. Where's our 3D cursor? I think I got a decent way to do this. So with this face selected, I'm going to hit F3, cursor to active, and then we'll change our pivot point to the 3D cursor. And we'll actually use these guys to create that. Maybe this should be 4. And maybe this is 2. 2, and let's see. Excuse me. And how far does this protrude? Not terribly far. So with our pivot point set to 3D cursor, we'll extrude. Now let's right click, then hit scale, or S for scale, and then we will shift X to take that out as a value. And we'll stretch this out to Maybe 6 millimeters? Hmm, close enough. Close enough. Is that one too wide? Um, hmm. Hmm. It feels like it's a little too wide. I'm gonna Control Z to undo that. But I think 3 wouldn't be wide enough. So what I'm gonna do is subdivide these two. And then I'm gonna get these. And I think these were fine. Or maybe it should just be one? Let's see. I'm going to extrude and right click, then scale, Shift X. So we're just going along the X and Y axes. And let's set it around 8. I feel like that's a little more accurate, but that would get in the middle of the sights. I don't know if that's intentional to be like an iron sight 8 or something. Oh, it does have a little dip here, seems like. And maybe it is part of the iron sight, because we do have this rear bit here that acts somewhat similarly. That definitely would get in the way. Uh, but I guess that makes this accurate, that it does get in the way. So I think this one goes down, and then there's like, what, 3 prongs? Where's that other image? So we got these two that are longer, and then the middle is pretty short. So what I'm going to do is take these edges. How wide is this? 2.1. It's not a lot, but I think it'll hold since this isn't load bearing or anything. And then I'm going to subdivide those. And then with those subdivided, I'm going to go ahead and remove these. So we got our 3 prongs. Then I'm going to take this down. It's a little less in the way. And let's go ahead and close these up. Oops. Alright. So that looks a little more sight-like. And I don't know if these are flat or if the angles are just fine. Let's take a look-see at that one again. They do look kind of flat. I don't know about those. So, period on that. Let's try to flatten these out at least. So with 3 cursors still as our pivot point, I'm going to select those, S, Shift X, and then we'll just bring it down. We'll just do this one manually. I feel like these should be outward more as well. So what I'm going to do is try to use medium point and use S for scale just to move them out. A little bit. This seems like a bit of a distance. Mm, hmm. There seems like there's some kind of rod here. Boom. Is that okay? Do we need to make adjustments? Hmm. I think it'll be fine. I think it's fine. Okay, I'm gonna take these vertices. I'm gonna rotate with control and say that's about 15 degrees. Well, it's exactly 15 degrees. Do the same thing over here, just to keep that symmetry going. And I feel like these go inward a little bit more. So I'm gonna hit Scale, Shift X. Oh, right. Let's go back to 3D cursor. Get those back. Scale, Shift X. Okay, this time I just hit Scale. Let's rotate these just a little bit. Back to medium point. Just 5 degrees. Like these can come inward just a touch. These can come down. Maybe a little more inward as well. And I think after that scaling, they went off a little bit. Yeah, they did. No big problem, no big deal. So let's take this and this one, and then we'll just snap it back over here. And then I guess these two also went off. So snapping it, then do the same thing over here. Snapping it over here. And then these two, snapping over here. So I think that's looking pretty decent. And now we can do that wire or whatever. Let's see. So I'm going to hit F3, cursor to active, and then we're going to Shift A and put a circle. Say that's 3 millimeters. Even that's not big enough. 1 millimeter. Wow. That is going to be such a narrow piece. But that is what is demanded. Okay, so I'm probably going to knife project this. So let's go ahead and hit P, selection. With this in edit mode, we can control left click on that. Let's go ahead and mesh, knife project. Didn't cut through this with this one. I'm just going to do it on both sides. So G, Y, let's bring that over here. Do the same thing. Edit mode. This one, control left click. Mesh, knife project. Now we got that going. And let's clear out these faces. And then we will do the same thing over here. Okay. In order to get those on the exact same way, let's go ahead and put our 3D cursor back in the center right here, and then we'll Shift D to duplicate that. P. Do we need P? I think we do. And then with one of those selected, let's right click and then mirror vertices across the Y. Oh, our pivot point. We got to set that back to 3D cursor and then mirror vertices, global Y. There we go. And now let's angle this up, going to median point. We're going to angle this down over here to 40 degrees. Let's get this one also angled down to 40 degrees. That should put it more or less on that point. So with this one selected, we'll go ahead and click on this face and then Shift 7 in order to get that face orientation. And then we will try to select that circle. Control, no. Ugh, this camera angle the way it is. Control 1 to get back to where we were. Let's try to hit that. There we go. There we go. Okay, with that, Shift 7. And then let's do the knife project so we can get our circle cut. And didn't actually go into that one, unfortunately. In that case, I think we're going to have to hide these. So we'll just select the top chunk of this thing and hit H to hide. We didn't want to hide that part. Get that back. H to hide. Now with this face, do the same thing. Shift 7. And then we gotta hit that. Let's see which one of you are over here. There we go. Okay, with that one as a red, mesh, knife project, and that didn't. Did it? No, it did. Feels like it should be higher though. Ugh. Control 1. Back here. Ooh. That didn't even do a good job. That's a little disappointing. Control Z, Control Z. What is going on with that? I'm gonna try to hit A, select all, Shift N to recalculate our normals. Maybe this will help. And I think we also want to raise these up a bit. So we want to hit more in the center. So with this in edit mode, Control, Shift 7, Mesh, Knife Project, Control 1. Now it's a little too high. Okay, we want it somewhere in between there. Maybe there. See how that looks. Control, face. Let's get this guy. Control 7 or Shift 7. Mesh. Knife project. Control 1. And I think that is infinitely better. Let's get rid of that face. And let's do the same thing over here. Got that. Shift 7. Mesh. Knife project. And Control 1. Get us back. Are you hideous again? Hey, why is that happening? Shift N with everything, try to recalculate those normals. Not sure why it's coming out like that. And act, that seems like it actually worked this time. I don't know why that's so ugly. As a circle, oof. Okay, loop tools might be able to help with this. Loop tools, circle. There we go. I don't know why that was necessary. Loop tools, circle. Alright, so Alt-H to unhide bits, and then we'll get these two loops. Then we'll hit 2 to go into edge mode, and then bridge the edge loops. So now we got that going. Then let's select these and subdivide And let's do both of them at the same time so we can get that symmetry. Probably easier way to do this, but this is just how I'm gonna do it. These edges, subdivide. And we're gonna bring this up because this curve, I think, is, or this rod, this tube, this whatever, is kind of curved. So we're gonna take it up a bit, like so. And then we're gonna go into edge mode. Let's get rid of edge links. Then we're gonna bevel. Right click, bevel the edges. Like that. So it's nice and rounded. I think that looks okay. Let's see. So we got that roundness going. I think it looks alright. And then, since this is an equilateral triangle, we should be able to get to copy and paste basically this. So with this selected, let's get F3, cursor to that, cursor to active. How do I want to do this? Because we did do some other stuff there. So let's get rid of everything here because I'm going to copy all that to here. We're just going to delete those edges. Let's do the same thing over here. And if everything is computer precise, it should be fine. So let's go into X-ray mode. Try to click on everything up here. All this that we're going to want. And going off X-ray mode, and we want to collect all these as well. All these vertices. All these beautiful vertices that we made. Alright. Okay, so hopefully this works. Shift D to duplicate. And then rotate. Oh, let's go to 3D cursor for our pivot point. Rotate, and we need to go to exactly, oh, I guess 120. That looks pretty good, I think. I think it does. I think it does. Alright, so Shift D, rotate another 120. And let's see how the meshes line up. Clean up, mesh by distance. 0? They're not exactly. 360 degrees. This is equilateral, so each one should have been 120, right? Is my maths off? Okay, so with a 3D cursor still as our pivot point, it looks like we need a tiny bit more rotation. So rotating along the X, what? Okay, let's Control Z. Do we have? Yeah, we duplicated it. So now rotating along the X for there. Rotating. It looks like it doesn't quite go out far enough, which is strange. Let's go ahead and turn this into a vertex group, which is not what I was doing there. Go into data, vertex group, add, assign. So now this is easily selectable. So I want to get into here, see what is going on. It's not long. That's very strange. Oh, what's it looking like over here? Now it's too long over here. Rotate X. Yeah. This is very weird. Um, so we could try scaling out from the Z-axis, or scaling out from the 3D cursor, I mean, and then rotating it to try to get closer, as that surely isn't going to be perfect for some reason. But scaling it out just made it a little bigger, which is not what I wanted to do. Oh, we could try. Let's click on this vertex here, and let's just try to snap it onto this guy. That's not quite on there, but it's really close. So if we use that perhaps as a pivot point, let's get back over here. We used this one, right? And clicked on that. And then we will switch our pivot point to active, and then try to rotate it enough that it fits right in there. So rotate X. Guess that's not going to be as easy as I was hoping. That's accurate. That's accurate. But you're kind of off. Let's scale it down. See how off that is. And it went inward. That is very unusual, but I think with enough tweaking, we should be able to get it at least close enough. Let's scale. Scaling, rotating, scaling, rotating. We're awful close. So what are you looking like over here? Looks like it needs to rotate too. Or maybe the whole thing needs to just come over a little bit. Say G, X. Scale outward a touch. Where is this? Man. This is a bit of a puzzle. L to select everything. Oh, wasn't the right point. Down a little bit. rotating along the X again. Scaling down, rotating along the X, scaling up. And that is just off by the tiniest bit. I think if we do auto merge, it should be fine. I don't like that it's not perfect though. It bothers me, it really does. But the distance between these is so minuscule. Let's see. Probably not even a millimeter. Yeah, it's such a small amount. Alright, let's hit A, then mesh, clean up, merge by distance, and that got almost everything, probably. Probably. Let's select this group. See if anything's not selecting properly. Well, why is that selected? Seems alright. Those divided points aren't quite where they need to be. Let's subdivide that and then merge by distance. Let's just auto merge over here. And we'll have to do that all the way around. Subdivide, auto merge. Subdivide, auto merge. Okay, that should be fine. Oh, and now we get to do that again. Over on this side. But you know what we could possibly do is mirror. Weirdly, it wasn't perfect, but mirror might save us some time. So let's just get this whole chunk over here. All of it. You know what? If it's not though, it's not divided down here. That doesn't have to be a problem though. We can divide it manually just so we can mirror it. Not have to do this symmetry stuff. Probably should have done that from the beginning. Let's subdivide. We're going to end up subdividing all these anyway. Subdivide. Attach here. Let's get this and this. Deselect half. Put a face. Same thing over here. Let's go ahead and hide this. And we'll subdivide all these. Let's hide this as well. And then also we will subdivide. These. And these as well. Wait, that shouldn't be that way. Subdivide. This one should be up here. Yeah, let's redo this face. Selecting all these, F, F. Alright. You didn't subdivide. Okay, let's get rid of this face. Put in a new one. That, and... Alright, that should divide right down the middle. So I'm going to hit this vertice or one in the middle of it. Select side of active. And we're going to go to the y-axis. And then we're going to invert selection and delete everything on that side. Then we're going to take that, go over to modifiers, add modifier, generate, mirror, and then put it on the Y, get rid of the X. And that should give us our bit on this side as well. Is that what it looks like? No, because this side is solid. That's the only one with the sight part. Okay, that's no problem. We can fix that easy enough. Let's just extend this out a bit. Then we'll get rid of this entire area. Then we'll put some faces on that. And get rid of these lines, these edges. That. And let's bridge these edge loops. Click bridge edge loops. Bridge edge loops there. It's more solid, and since we mirrored it, it's good on that side as well. Alright, now this does look kind of flat though, doesn't it? So maybe we can flatten this out. Let's make this into an edge then. That'll be the fourth one we have here. And let's select all of these, all the vertices. I got X-ray mode, so period. We're over here, and then let's say S, Y, in this case SX, 0. Let's make sure our pivot point is median point, and SZ0 for this one. Wait. It's kind of wonky on that edge, right? SX0. No, it's turning. SX. Oh, SY. Y0. Wonder why it's not giving me that edge that I wanted. Why is this diagonal? Let's try it with this one. So maybe this isn't the right edge that I'm looking for. Collect these again. SX0. Nope. SY0. There we go. That's a bit more of what we wanted. Yeah, nice and flat now. Okay. So, as usual, I want to bevel these edges because I don't want to touch those sharp corners. That. And maybe these as well. Actually, not those, not the ones hitting the face. Let's get these, not these, not these, not these. But this, yeah, this, and then we'll also get that top. all those, period. This, say this. Yeah, is that gonna interfere? Let me check. Shouldn't be too bad. Should we bevel these? It'll be a tiny bit of bevel. Just a tiny bit. And I think that'll be it. I won't worry about those. Should reduce it. These parts are so small at this point. Don't think it'll matter all that much, really. But I sure do feel better when sharp corners are rounded. I think that's it for those parts. Now that's a good chunk of what we need to do. What we need next is to make the slot so it'll fit on the handle and the flashlight rail, and we will save that for next time though. And if you don't want to go through all this modeling, I do have the STL files needed to print all of my 3D printable props available to supporters over on my Patreon. We currently have over 40 props available and are adding more all the time. This prop will also be made available once it's finished. So if you'd like to skip the modeling and gain access to an entire armory of 3D printable props, check out my Patreon, link in the description. It is only $5 a month and you gain access to the entire armory of over 40 props. Staying a member ensures you get access to everything new added to the armory immediately and of course, very much helps support the channel. Speaking of supporting, we have to show our gratitude to M. John Simon, a real hero of the channel, supporting at the hero tier. Become a hero to get yourself special mention in these very videos, and as always, like and subscribe to ensure you never miss out on the next video. Until then, I have been Ken with Kenjutsu Bring It to Life, and I am out.